All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fun installment of Personal Board of Directors. This is actually one of the most favorite things I think I do every 6 months is hang out with two phenomenal people, Melissa Perri and Gibson Biddle. So how we doing, Melissa? How we doing, Gib?
Good. Doing great.
Great. So this is really an idea, actually, one for Gib. He's been doing this for a number of years where he built up this idea of a group of people that he could speak with and challenge his thinking, keep him accountable, keep him honest about his personal development and growth. And it's a really fascinating idea. And one had the opportunity to speak to Gib about this, and we thought this would be a fantastic thing to do ourselves, but actually, yet again, make it open it up and share it with other people. So hopefully, you can learn some fun lessons and make maybe better mistakes than we've all made in our life and our career. So one of the fun things we will be doing is that it's opened up to questions, right? Like half the fun of this is actually we'll talk to each other and share a little bit and interview one another. But what's really fascinating is to actually look at some of the questions that you might have and you would love to hear from us. So uh, hold up your phone or look out for the link that we've shared in the chat where you'll be able to add your own questions to a Slido, and we'll answer as many as we can, as quickly as we can throughout the course of the session. All right, so I'll leave that up for a few minutes to give you a chance to describe it. It'll also be in the chat, copy the link. But first of all, I get the honor to kick off and say hello to Melissa. So Melissa, how's it going? What's been going on with you?
Going pretty good. Since the last time I was here, I finished my room. So there's no empty closet in the back of me. There's a Murphy bed in there. So I shiplapped this whole thing and built a Murphy bed, and it's my my little project. But otherwise, it's been good. I have been I went on my first big international trip since COVID. So I was away for 3 weeks, which I forgot is such a long time. I used to do this all the time. And then I remember right before COVID, I said, I'm only going to go away for 2 weeks. And I forgot about that because I was so excited to go everywhere. And I ended up going to Amsterdam to see our developer for Product Institute, who's my friend, Switzerland to do the workshop that we postponed from December that I think I told you guys about. And then I went to Bali and Singapore with my friends, and then spoke at Amplify in Las Vegas and came home. So I literally looped around the world, which was
That's
pretty
great.
cool.
Yeah, one whole wrap. Yeah, well done. You're going to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Gabe, what about you? Some highlights for you. What have you been up to?
Hey, Melissa, if I didn't know you, can you do the 3 or 4 sentence summary of your career?
Good call. Hi guys, I'm Melissa Perri. So I am a product management teacher and consultant. So I do a couple different things. I ran for about 6 years a consultancy called Products Labs, where we helped organizations do product transformations and everything from setup their product management teams, train their people, work with leaders to educate them on what product management is, train them on their positions in product management, set strategy with them, deploy it, all that stuff. And I did that with very, very large companies, most of the banks that you see around the world, a lot of pharmaceutical companies, tons of enterprises, and then also worked with Insight Venture Partners to do it with their growth stage companies, had a team where we played interim chief product officers. I stopped consulting as much at the end of 2020, just to take a little bit of a break. I was getting very burnt out, which I've talked about on this quite a bit, and primarily focused my time teaching through my online school called Product Institute, where we teach everybody at scale product management courses. Now I also teach at Harvard Business School. So I teach the Product Management 101 and 102 program to the MBA students on the faculty. And then I started something called CPO Accelerator a little while ago, which is trying to train people who are already product leaders into being C-suite chief product officers. And that's been going very well. I wrote the book, Escaping the Bill Trap. And then I have a podcast called Product Thinking Podcast. And I'm writing the next book on product operations. So it's what I've been doing and what I do now.
Cool beans. Okay, my pattern, I'll start with that. Tail end of my career, I was the VP of product at Netflix from 2005 to 2010. I looked for startups who would prove a concept and help them to grow, then go on to the next. My next one was called Chegg. textbook rental and homework help company. And then 8 years ago, I stopped working for direct deposit. So I just started career hacking. I taught Stanford for a while. I do a little bit with INSEAD as well. And so I do talks, workshops, I write. But I'm different from these other two, which is I describe myself as semi-retired. I skied 113 days this winter. And they were both a little surprised that retirement was sort of seeping more into my conversation. You'll hear more about that. Okay, you're up, Barry.
Yeah, so Barry O'Reilly, I'm an entrepreneur, business advisor, author. I wrote Lean Enterprise, which is part of our Crisis series, and Unlearn, Let Go of Past Success to Achieve Extraordinary Results. I am faculty at Singularity University and currently building a venture studio called Nobody Studios. So we're trying to build 100 companies over the next 5 years. Currently got 11 in production. It's a little bit of a madhouse, but it's a lot of fun trying to build these early stage companies and get them off the ground. So really enjoying that at the moment, and really enjoy hanging out with these two folks to share what we've been up to. So we use this great model again that came up called the camp model, and then Melissa innovated it and made it camps, which actually is really good. And it's about community, autonomy, purpose, scale, and mastery. So what we'll do is we'll ask each other to give like a quick little score of where we're at in each one of those sort of vectors, and then we'll do a little Q&A on each one of us to dig a little deeper, and then we'll try and take as many of your questions after that. So I luckily get to interview Melissa, which is great. Right. All right, Melissa. So community, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being absolutely disaster and 10 being, oh my God, it could not be any better. Where did you manage to score yourself on community this time?
Hey, Barry, I thought I was going to interview Melissa.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Everybody's fighting to interview me now. Look at
Yes.
this. I like it.
Okay, Melissa, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us the rundown?
So I scored a 6. I just lost my sheet that I put everything in because I was sharing our link, but let me go back to it. Okay, so community. Here's the you want me to go down the list and then go back through them?
You're in charge.
Okay, cool. Okay, so community, I scored a 6, autonomy an 8, mastery a 7, purpose a 9, and scale an 8. So community, I did a 6. So I talked about this a little bit last time, but I've been feeling a little disconnected from the product community. And I realized after this little whirlwind tour that I used to get so much community out of in-person events, and going to, I spoke at Amplify in Las Vegas. I did the workshop in Switzerland. I just realized how much I really missed that. And I missed, being able to go and talk to people about what they're experiencing now, grab a drink with them after the conference, hang out with them and just get deep into those conversations. It's kind of my preferred way to interact. So I marked it as 6 because I just realized I kind of feel like I pulled away a little bit over COVID years from all of this stuff. And my one-way interaction of doing online talks, which I don't mind doing, just still didn't make me feel connected. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so the go-do there is you will likely do more in-person stuff this next 6 months. Got it.
So I'm trying to optimize for more in-person events. I'm going to be in Agile 2022 in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, that was kind of my feeling there. So it's I know I'm part of a community, but I feel like so many of the things that I do is one way. And while I still ask for feedback, I prefer it's hard online to get a face to a name type thing, so I'm trying to, when I go in person, I feel like we can get deeper. We can talk about those things. It's how I prefer to interact too. I also find that a lot of people, and I guess this kind of goes with scale as well, is a lot of people reach out to me where they ask me, can I pick your brain? Never ask me that. I think that's the dumbest way to start something, by the way. I'm sorry, but do not come to people and be like, hey, can I just borrow your time to pick your brain? That's
I have a worse question. Will you be my mentor?
Yeah. Very few people ask me that, which is great, but can I pick your brain? It happens all the time. I get 40 of those a week, a month, a lot. So I will not answer you. If you follow up and hound me, that's really annoying. If I don't answer people, it's because I get so many emails that I can't sit there and actually filter through all the ones that were like not pertaining to anything that I do. So I hate that. Like, so I'm not going to connect with people that way. But like, if you are at a conference with me and you have a question or whatever, like I'm happy to like sit down and talk with you for a couple minutes, or like answer the questions there, because it's like I'm there to interact with people and be in that spot. But if it's happening when I'm at home, right, it's usually like you're taking away from my personal life with my friends, or you're taking away
Yeah.
from my work time with work. So I try to make time for it. I try to do things in scalable ways. But I realize like that's where I get a lot of the energy from, is having those conversations in person, live,
Awesome.
in those good spots.
Okay, so we go on to autonomy. I know that I think your autonomy got a little bit better.
Yeah.
Based on one big difference. Why don't you tell us about that one?
So I have autonomy as an 8 this year. And it's because I did reduce my load at HBS a little bit. Our class needs refactoring to teach it the way that I want to do it. And HBS doesn't really like allow for a lot of space to rewrite courses. When you're booked into a course, you teach it. You have no time to actually rewrite it. So I worked with our department, who was super supportive, and reduced my load to just teach in January a shorter class so I can refine it and take the time this year to actually write it, and then hopefully reintroduce it into the fall. But because of that, I'm only teaching now in January with this intensive and doing independent projects. So that gives me a little bit more flexibility over my time, and I don't have to be in Boston every single day this year, which is good. So I'll be spending most of my time in South Carolina, and getting to do a little bit more flexibility of like brainstorming it. So I'm pretty excited about that. It just needs to stew. It's very hard to like do it on command. I feel like write the course on demand.
Yeah. Well, if you recall, I experimented teaching at Stanford, and then I decided it was a failed hypothesis and stopped it happily. Yeah. So you're hanging in there, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I want to figure out how do we teach it well. And I think the last class iteration that they had of it was amazing, but it was super startup focused. I was just talking to a enterprise company today, and they were like, yeah, we specifically went with Product Institute because we read Escaping the Build Trap, and we know you get enterprises and you understand product management, not only from a startup perspective, but with what we go through. And that's something that I really want to bring to my course, because 90% of my students end up working for another company, and usually it's a large company. So I think that's really important to learn in product management. And it's not just about lean startup principles. So I'm trying to incorporate some of that. And we also have like amazing startup courses all over HBS, which I don't want to duplicate, because those people who are teaching it really know what they're doing.
Got it. So then on mastery, if we define that as you feel like you're growing and learning and developing new skills, you net it out as a 7, which is probably a little lower. Yeah. Tell me more.
I went lower. I guess it's like mastery of what? I feel like I mastered what I set out to do on like a lot of this stuff, teach, speak, thought development on some of this stuff. I'm trying to figure out my next wave. That's kind of been it. Like, I feel like I've got product management as a concept down pretty well. And I think I could do it, frankly, anywhere. So I put it 7, not from a product management perspective. I guess it's like a growing and learning thing. Am I continuing to learn? I feel like I'm capping out on certain aspects. And I think I noticed this too by having conversations with like a lot of other people who are chief product officers and who are doing this everywhere. When I'm learning their stories, I'm like, it almost like, or when people tell me their problems, like I can predict exactly what's going on now. Like I could turn around and just be like, this is your problem. And they're like, how'd you know? It's like, because I've seen it 87,000 times. When somebody explains like how they built things, it's usually not news to me about how they got there. Like it's like, yep, that's exactly like how you should do it. So while I feel like I would rate product management mastery at a 10, the learning perspective of other things, I'm feeling a little lighter on. And I guess I'm still trying to figure out what else to master. I'm looking for something else.
So, I mean, I'm looking at your notes. You said you feel a little like me, Gib, here. What I articulated is there's like a 4 or 5 year cycle to what I do. And certainly with speaking, like at the beginning, I was like supercharged, like, fear of failure was high. And then I get to year 4 or 5 and it's like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then I just
Yeah.
need some new challenge. Do you work on that same cycle, that 4 to 5 year cycle?
Yeah, I don't know if it's exactly 4 to 5. I've been doing a lot of what I've
Yeah.
been doing for a long time too, and I think that's a
Okay.
part of it. Like when I was consulting and I deliberately chose not to do consulting, I had been doing it for 7 years. So like
Yeah.
7 years full on consulting. And then about 3 years of like trying to grow that team. I've been doing Product Institute since 2016. I've been doing speaking since 2013. So like I've done a lot of the stuff that I've been doing over and over. And now I'm also trying to figure out what else to master. Things that I don't feel like I've mastered that I would really like to get better at. Just started a
And
podcast.
podcasting is one of those. Yeah. So tell me about the creative spark, the joy of podcasting.
It's cool. Honestly, it was to solve a need of scaling myself. So that goes into the scale piece, right? I was getting tons of emails that were like, hey, I have this question. And everybody had the same question. And I was like, I want a way to be able to answer people's questions because I want to answer them, but I can't respond to every single person on email. And I also
And
had,
is podcasting better than writing a book or
yeah,
writing
well, that's what I
essays?
was going to get to. So for
Yeah.
me, it is because when I burnt out, I have a hard time writing long form thoughts right now. So like even writing emails just takes like a lot out of me. And I started podcasting because I can literally talk to anybody about this very off the cuff. And that's a great way for me to get my ideas out, but I'm not going to be sitting there editing myself like I do when I write. And that's why I started it. And it works really well for me because I can knock out a Dear Melissa episode that I do answering people's questions in about 20 to 30 minutes. So
Got it.
whereas writing that would have taken me a whole day. Like it would have been like a mental block for me to like sit down, open the paper, start with it. And instead I just read the things. I jot down a couple notes, I hit record, and then I record it for about 20 minutes. So
Cool. So high bang for the buck and
yeah,
creative challenge, and you get a lot back, which is awesome.
yeah. The
Yeah, and I
one thing
remember the burnout thing from last time. We'll come back to that at the end.
yeah, the one thing
So-
I'm I guess an open question to think about and good one for the audience. Thinking about guests for podcast. A lot of people want to hear the same people that every other podcast has, right? But I'm trying to
Yep.
find like some really interesting stories. And this gets in a little bit with the learning piece. Sometimes, and it's not the people I've ended up interviewing, but I get approached by a lot of people. Hey, have me on your podcast. I'm like, cool. What's an interesting point of view that you could bring to this conversation? And it's literally just repeating everything we've ever talked about in product management. And I'm trying to find more interesting stories, right? Like I don't want to hear another story about like how somebody worked with developers and it was the best thing they've ever done. like we all heard that story
Yeah.
already. Like we've had
Yeah.
lots of them. And
That's
I think they're great to hear,
Good.
once or
Yeah.
twice, but it's starting to be like, oh, they can talk about, doing user research. And it's like, but like,
Yeah.
how'd you do it differently, right? Like, how'd you do it in a way that was maybe like impossible to do user research and you broke down a bunch of barriers and introduced it to a system? Like, I think there's
Gotcha.
some really interesting stories in there, but it's been harder to find them. And I've also had some really great people that I've almost gotten onto the podcast to tell some cool stories. And then their companies have shot them down at the last second. And that has been incredibly frustrating. So if you
I
are
see.
listening to this and you work at a company where you're a leader, think about that. Like it's really good recruiting. People love to like listen to the podcast and be like, I want to work there. And then if you just don't let your people talk about their work, how will they know that you do good work? That's like incredibly sad. And they're good stories. They're not bad stories. Like we're telling like
Yeah.
wins here, like really cool wins. And companies will be like, no, we're not allowed to talk about that.
Hey, I want to nudge things along. Where are you on, you feel like you're living your purpose. You're able to dent the world
I
purpose.
still feel like it's about 9. I
That's
still feel
awesome.
good about where we are, how I've been denting.
If I recall, both of you are tough graders, so it's awesome when I see a 9. I'm the easy grader. Okay.
Yeah.
How you feeling about your scalability?
I feel like we're in at 8 right now. I guess I have some questions about like, how do I reach more people now? I feel like I get a good audience, but I'm also trying to feel like I get a bigger audience. Like I know Gib also mentioned like Lenny. I interviewed Lenny for the podcast and I was just like, holy crap, you're so cool. I was like, how do I do that? Like, how do I find some of that scale? So those are, I feel like the purpose is there. I'm trying to optimize for reach now.
Lenny's a good role model because he really started by only doing one thing. He put out an essay every week, and then his wife put out a Friday community-based essay. Just freaking persistent and consistent. And then over time, he's reached out to do more, with his podcast. He's got a job board. It's like he gives it about 120% energy. I give this kind of stuff about 28% energy. So I'm like, ooh. Anyways, I am really pleased to see his success. Okay, the personal stuff. How are you feeling about everything?
Ooh, so that was like a big thing. I guess that changed since January. I've been like, I talked to people about the burnout, but like I've gone through some like health issues, and it turns out because of burnout, had the coronavirus, was ridiculously stressed out. I have thyroid problems now, so a huge win in figuring out what that was. But it has literally been like I can no longer eat gluten and dairy. It inflames my system. My energy is like all over the place. Which means that it's incredibly hard to focus sometimes. So there are days like where I said I blocked out my whole calendar to write, and I just can't. Like I can barely get out of bed is the feeling of it. So that's been really, really hard to contend with because I've been contending with it since basically the end of 2020 and through 2020, and I never knew what it was. And I pushed myself through it a lot and just said, you have to do it. But it's been a lot since I found this out, which was only in, I think, the April, I learned about this. I've been trying to like listen to myself a little bit because the doctor was like, this will get better. You will even it out eventually. But if you don't do these things and you keep like being massively inflamed and ignoring your energy and your thyroid, like it will just keep getting worse and worse. So doing a lot more to like, it's bad because I'm like a very type A person. So I'm like, I feel guilty when I can't work, but I'm trying to do a lot more of when my brain doesn't work. I don't try to do brain things. I go and I do my house projects because it's very like cut and dry, like just get it done. But that's hard. And it's hard to work around like a schedule or have as much of a routine, especially when you fluctuate that much. So
from last time, Barry and I, both you and Barry were troubled by burnout, which by the way, COVID presented huge challenges to all.
Yeah.
Do you think you're doing better, or what help can any of us provide?
Yeah, no, I do think I think it's getting
Right.
better. I'm getting more excited about things. Now that I'm in person, I'm getting more energy from certain stuff. It's the health stuff, I think. I think there's part of like I feel it some weeks. Like there was a week ago, I felt like so off that I could barely sleep, could barely like function during the day. And I was just like completely off from like a health perspective. And I knew that was like some burnout signaling. And it's also like my thyroid signaling, like the stress was just too much. And I have to just like take it easy during those weeks, but it's incredibly frustrating because I just want to get my things done that I have to get done. So like I had 3 things on my list to do for the week and I could only do one of them because I was just so like such a mess.
Okay, so the stuff I'm going to remember for our next conversation is to keep nudging you to do more in-person stuff because you seem to love that. Keep chasing the podcasting because it feeds your creative energy, and then take care of yourself. Because I think it sounds like health is sort of the root of some of these burnout issues.
And I think that's a big thing. Yeah.
Give yourself permission not to do it all, which I'm a freaking expert at.
Yeah.
Because you do a lot. I mean, I've seen on Instagram your house is now gorgeous, and like I couldn't work at the pace that you do and then do things like home projects. It would kill me. So Barry, any notes you want to give coaching for,
I think
we remember this conversation? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just always think Melissa needs to forgive herself and let herself take a little time, like I always love her ambition and audacity and just things that she goes after. But I think it's okay to sort of like give yourself some space for you. I think it's tough lesson that I think we've all, like, still learning. I don't think anyone on this call has totally got it figured out, but I think we have to be really conscious of it. And our health is the ultimate feedback mechanism, right? Like that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I think I finally got to the point where I'm like, this is what I need to take care of. Because I have some answers, and it's not just about sleeping more. And I think, I don't know, there's something, if you're all listening and you're feeling that way, like I used to just be like, all I have to do is sleep a little more, take a week-long vacation. And if you let yourself get too far, it takes a really long time to recover, and you got to give yourself grace.
Got it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, Barry, I'm going to shut up. And if I recall, Melissa's going to interview you. Is that correct?
Interview me. Hurrah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Man,
So what's your big highlights from the last couple?
well, like the probably most interesting highlight is that we packed up our bags in San Francisco and moved to Manila in the Philippines. So my wife took up the role with the World Health Organization. She runs all their emergency preparedness planning in Asia. It's a pretty crazy job, but I don't even know, I hardly even see her anymore. She's working so much, but she loves what she's doing, and we moved our whole family here, so that's been kind of fun. And then, I suppose, launching our venture studio, we continue to build out this studio. So a bit like you, Melissa, I was getting tired of consulting. I felt like people were coming in, and I was like, oh, that's the squeaky arm problem, or that's the sore knee problem, and like the diagnoses were, it just felt like I was the same stuff all the time, And I knew I was missing building, because I had the opportunities to do advisory work and sort of work my way back into doing startups and building, and I just realized how much I missed it. So for me, that was a big shift, is to actually stop doing consulting work and actually build startups again. And the venture studio is interesting because we raise our own capital. We have a bunch of ideas. We build teams and then try and launch these early stage companies. And it's been one of the toughest things I think I've ever done, but it's been so rewarding from a growth and outside my comfort zone, and learning everything from raising capital to dealing with VCs to attract people to work in the studio and work on the project. So that's been a fascinating sort of experience for me, and as well as shifting and moving to a whole new continent. So far, so good. Pretty fun. None of our stuff has arrived from San Francisco. It was packed in mid-January, sat in the port in Oakland for 4 months. And there's this little tracking app that you can watch your boat move across the Pacific Ocean. And you think it's heading to the Philippines, and then it turns towards China. And then you think it's going back and turns towards Singapore. And so that's a fun thing to do. If anyone's got spare time, go look at tracking apps for boats and imagine when your stuff might arrive.
Oh my God, that would drive me nuts.
I've done that with furniture. It eventually shows up.
Eventually, yeah. We've 2 IKEA tables, 6 chairs, and 2 mattresses on the floor. This is the dream that we are living right now.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, definitely.
I had a house full of air mattresses for 4 months. Yeah,
it's a joy.
Cool. So for community, you rate yourself a 7. Why? How are you feeling about community right now?
Yeah. So I probably haven't got to spend as much time with product community, but I have got involved in new communities, right? So I joined Angel Squad, which is part of Hustle Fund. It's a syndicate, because I needed to learn about how VCs think when they're making investments in early stage businesses. So that was a good chance to sort of get exposure to that and actually start to make some angel investments, which has kind of been more fun for me. And I also joined a Web3 group, Hustleverse, which was part of that. So that was really interesting, just to sort of expose myself to new technologies and new skills in that way. So I really enjoyed that. And one of the promises I made to myself when we were moving to Asia is that I'd try and meet one new person based in Asia every week. And I've been doing that for the last year. And so that's been really fabulous to meet a whole different group of people who are outside the Silicon Valley bubble, for so to speak. And and then I'm starting to reap a lot of reward from those relationships now, and connections over here, and doing some interesting stuff. So good. I just haven't spent any time with really people in person. I did one Singularity event, which I managed to get COVID on, which was a joy. Gave it to everyone in the family after 2 years. So happy with that one. But yeah, it's been a 7. So all good.
Not cool with the COVID. My sister just had it this
Ah,
week.
tough.
Such
Yeah.
a still there. All right, autonomy.
Yeah, 8. So like this is always one of the fun ones, you know. I actually have a boss again. I think I spoke about this last time. It was even more of a shock to my system last time having a boss. It's like, and he's a good boss, don't get me wrong, but I have a boss. I have someone I've got to answer to in the studio, which is like pretty funny. You know, and you know, so I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. It's hard, but it's really rewarding. And I feel like we're sort of getting to this like tipping point with the studio now. We're going to launch a couple of the companies, and so yeah, it's been really fun. But yeah, still figuring out how to, like, when someone tells me what I need to do, actually have to deal the stuff, even though I don't might love doing it all. But it's still at 8, so that's not too bad.
Nice.
Hmm.
What about mastery?
Yeah, and this is all business building. I loved building my own business, but I think trying to build other businesses has been really fascinating to get like a whole team together. Like raising capital is something that I had not done extensive amounts of before. Like that's just been really fascinating. Leveraging talent. We did our first acquisition in the studio. We bought a serverless no code low code platform that I'd worked with for the last couple of years. So it's all been outside my comfort zone, and I'm just learning all of this stuff by doing it, making a bunch of mistakes along the way, but I actually feel like I'm sort of alive again, right? Rather than like hearing the same problems week in, week out. I feel like they're my problems to solve now, which ties a lot into the purpose piece, right? Like I've scored myself a 9, which I normally wouldn't, as say you and me heart mark each other hard, but like I actually like believe in what I'm doing. Like we're building early stage companies is just really exciting to me. Like building again is really exciting to me, and I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing now. You know, I had a great time enjoying coaching and consulting, but I just feel like this is actually what I need to be doing right now, and it's given me a lot of energy. So yeah, I feel like I'm really dialed into the purpose and trying to change the way venture building is done. We're going to be the first venture studio to ever offer equity crowdfunding. So retail investors are going to be able to own a piece of our studio and actually be venture investors with a couple of $100. And I'm really proud of us being able to do that and change that system. So yeah, I feel dialed into it. As hard and frustrating as it is, it's given me a lot of energy.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And 7.
Yeah, well, scale, and I think it's just a tipping point, right? Being able to open up what we're doing to the world. We're really crowd based, so being able to open up what we're doing where people can own and contribute and build in the studio is going to be really fascinating. So I'm hoping I'll be able to make that a 10 next time we speak, because we've really sort of shifted the way people can get involved in early stage businesses. So if you're a product manager, designer, and engineer, and you wish to turn your side hustle into a real business, you should come and talk to us at Nobody Studios. We could help you build it. It'd be great.
That's great. Any questions, Gib, for Barry?
I mean, a couple of things that are unsaid that I admire. The first thing is you're on like a family adventure, right? And I'm assuming you're in Manila because of your wife's work at the World Horse Health Organization, which is awesome. I also noted that you hired a nanny, which I thought was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. But my encouragement to folks in their 30s is you invested in college, some of them in business school or med school, invest in a nanny. It's the next thing, which was really a big secret for me and Kristen in our household. Anyways, the other unsaid thing is I admire, crowdfunding venture studio is a high risk, high reward thing. But I love how you have the foundation in the work that you do with your talks and workshops to pay for you and your family and presumably pay for future college, et cetera. And then all of this high risk, high reward stuff, the venture studios is just layered on top. So I really admire that. And listening to you, I don't hear the same level of stress.
Yeah, you were stressed
6
last
months
time.
ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, like these are all great points, right? So I really got to double down, and again, thank you for the sage advice of getting help, right? And for me, again, like I grew up in a family of six. We had what we needed, but we were by no means like living the dream, right? And the idea of hiring someone to help with that is just very uncomfortable and alien to me. But me and my wife work really, really, really hard, and I think it was the breakthrough when you were explaining, like thinking of it as an investment, right? And that rather than like a privilege in a way, it was an interesting way to like reframe it in my head. And now I have more energy, right? Like just little things where just helping us both as we're busy, and then I've loads of energy for my kids. They're 2 and 4. I've loads of I can focus and dial in. So yeah, that's been a huge breakthrough, and it's something I almost couldn't see myself not going back, like changing. It's been such a good choice. And it's interesting that you mentioned like I almost think of a real portfolio thinker, right? Where what are the different bets that I'm making and what do they return? And it's sort of like this risk element, right? Like my wife now is her job is sort of stable, right? She's in the UN. She knows what she does, and that sort of gave me then the springboard to take more risk, right? To sort of actually say, actually, I can do some more crazy stuff, like try and start this venture studio. And yeah, like even within my own portfolio career, I can do my talks. I can do a workshop here and there. I love doing these high potential programs that I do maybe once every 6 months with companies like Slack or Spotify, where I take like their next generation of leaders and run them through like a 6 to 12 week program. Like I actually love doing that because I feel like but it gives me more optionality and a base, so I can do the crazy stuff. And I think it's really important to think like that. Is our career, our choices, where we put our energy is a portfolio, and their experiences. Some of them will help you learn things, like joining the communities has helped me learn things. Doing talks pays me things. And the venture studio is an intellectual curiosity pursuit, and I'm growing, right? So
yeah,
it's been
it's a really
fascinating.
interesting idea because you have this portfolio of activities, which I have that too. I hadn't thought of it that way. By the way, Melissa, coming back to you, the unsaid thing is, I believe, you can tell me I'm wrong, but you've been doing a great job of funding for your retirement. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, and I've been trying to. So like on a personal note, my parents never saved for retirement, so they cannot retire. I am the breadwinner of the family, including for my parents. So it's like I'm in a position where I try to optimize to be able to take care of everybody. But I
am the backstop too in my family. Yeah.
So I've been saving for retirement ever since I started making like $1.
Yeah.
But I am trying to figure out a big thing that I've been trying to figure out over the last year is just like how to build and diversify wealth. So that it's not just an exchange for my time all the time, because I do have all of that plans. And I also like realize like if I drop off the face of the earth, then who's going to take care of my family? So
do you have a financial helper?
I have a couple.
Great.
So
right.
yeah.
And they get on you about things like wills?
Yes. So now I have an estate planner, trusts, all
awesome.
that stuff. Which is just like a weird thing to be thinking about at my age. But at the same time, like I have like this underlying fear of like I will die and nobody will take care of my family. So and I'm not in dire health or anything like that. But that's been like a big focus of mine. So I've been also like thinking about how to diversify stuff and take more of an investment approach. Like I like how Barry's talking about it with like a portfolio return. So I've been looking at that too from my stuff. Like one thing I'm exploring is opening a bar down here. Actually, my whole family is in restaurants and bars except me.
Represent. Let's go. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so my sister's very good at it, and I love a good bar. So I was like, I'm just gonna be there. So it's Like typically everybody's like, oh, it's an awful business. Like I live in a
I
town
would probably
does
say
not
that.
have enough.
That sounds like a horrible idea.
I know. So it's
Wait, how about a vineyard?
yeah, a vineyard would be great. I would do that too. Maybe that's my second project now. No, but so I'm looking at that. But it's something too where like I would not run the day-to-day of that, right? Like I would be opening that and we'd have somebody run it, but it would be, one of my projects. And I like coming up with the concept and the decor and having like a place, like a physical place is kind of nice too to think about. So I've been thinking about those types of things. And you talked about this, Gib, too, and yours about possibly bringing people to Bend to do like workshops with them. Yeah. And I was trying to do
Let's
that.
interview Gib then. Let's drill in and see what he's doing there.
Okay.
Yeah. So like,
I'll
tell us about that.
I'll do the rapid
interview.
fire.
Yeah.
Who's
Give us a
interviewing me?
rundown.
Just remind me, just so I know.
It's
Community.
Gonna be
Come on.
Oh, it's Barry.
Community.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll just do my thing. So community. I actually continue to feel good about the relationships I've established. You two are prime examples, despite the fact we've been virtual for so long. So I've given it a 9. Autonomy, I'm still at a 10. I mean, I have optimized my life for flexibility and freedom. I think you guys know my goal is always to ski my age in days, and I skied 113
You
days.
smashed it like that. Is
Yeah,
there
I
only
almost
like
doubled it.
240 work days in the year, and so you're doing
Yeah,
50% of those.
And I think I learned a new sport, which is I do a lot of backcountry skiing. I'm able to skin up these mountains, and I've been learning about avalanche safety. But the secret is, in past years, I've done 120 talks or workshops in a year. 80 were free, good for the world, and 40 were paid. And so I've only been doing the 40 paid ones each year. And actually, I think, Melissa, you recall, I still have some problems with my voice. So only talking 40 times a year has been super, super helpful to me. Mastery, per our conversation earlier, I've dropped it to 7. And I kind of feel like I might be at the end of one of my 4 to 5 year cycles. I should probably pop out 2 new talks, in the next couple of months. I haven't done it yet. A little less inspiration. I did get to 17,000 subscribers for my Ask Gib product newsletter. So in terms of collecting emails, I'm doing better there.
Well, tell us a bit about that, because this is an interesting way where Melissa was talking more about answering it through a podcast.
Yeah.
And then your inputs are answering to a newsletter. So what was different in your thought when we heard what Melissa gets out of talking about it when you're typing about it?
Yeah, I heard what Melissa said. Sometimes she doesn't have the energy to write, where podcasts are easier. I think that's a fair statement. For me, I'm often inspired to write about an idea. I'm very sporadic. I've done like 70 or 80 essays, and early on I was doing like almost daily, and I just look right now. I'm just sort of once a month, like when I have time for it. But I do feel good to have collected email addresses, because that's what fuels my little business of Teachable, which is pre-recorded product strategy workshop, which saves my voice, but also gives me a lot of leverage. So people can go through that whole course. And it gives me the flexibility. I'll get an email while I'm on a chairlift saying, I just paid for your course. And the course is good. So
you can go buy a beer at Melissa's new bar then, right? There's a win. So
purpose.
Dive into your purpose now. Yeah. I want to hear this, because
I still feel good about supporting the product community via talks, workshops, and writing, but I'm just not as prolific as I used to be. So I think my argument is I'm not quite as impactful. And then in terms of aging gracefully, I need to maintain a relationship with the community just to have new ideas and to stay relevant. So I dropped a little bit on the purpose. And then scale, I proved that I can continue to have a business that works great. I basically make the same amount of money every year, and I don't need the money, but I use it as a way to keep myself from doing too many talks and workshops. I think I'll be candid. I am semi-retired, and sometimes I feel the voice. I joke with my wife, Kristen, I'm thinking about not doing any more work, and she's like, Gib, you ski 113 days a winter. How much work do you think you actually do? I'm like, oh, that's fair. But right now my schedule is I'll go to a major worldwide city once a month. I enjoy doing that because basically I'm traveling and exploring the world on somebody's other's nickel, and I'm staying in touch, and I learn when I travel, and I'm trying to keep from being an ugly American, a stupid American. So that's why I do it. But I really want to become a better mountain biker. I still am passionate about the backcountry skiing. I want to learn to wing a foiling board. And then I've been a good dad, and I've furnished a house in Bend, and now I got to figure out what the heck to do with our house in Burlingame. So, and then Kristen and I are going to probably head off the grid for 6 months in the future to the Pacific Crest Trail, which will be fun. So,
yeah. Such active vacations.
Well, no, they're amazing, right? And and again, interesting you chose Bend as one of the places to set yourself up, right? But some of the things you're saying, or the things you haven't said, is this idea of thinking about, how you can build up community where you are, which is kind of interesting, right? Like you're tying with these ideas of you already have the Product Leader Summit, but maybe doing something different closer to where you are. So share a little bit about what, because that might get some of this fire in your belly again as you sort of feeling it waning a bit.
Yeah. So one idea is to do my product strategy workshop in Bend. Bend is in the middle of Oregon. If you love to ski or mountain bike or river raft, or if you like eating food and drinking beer and talking with folks, it's a great place to be.
Yeah.
So I probably will do that as an experiment. And that, in part, I love experimenting and I love trying new things because that brings back the, me learning and the mastery scale. So I know this about myself. I love to experiment and hack with new ideas. So I think it's likely in the next 3 to 6 months, I'll probably try that experiment.
Yeah.
Also, Teresa Torres lives in my neighborhood. I was going to see if she was interested in the same idea. And then I know there's a heck of a lot of work. Like, okay, where do people stay? How do they get a ride from the airport?
But you can find somebody to help with that too. There's a lot of people who are experts at the travel part of it.
Yeah, but I'm really a pain in the neck to work with, Melissa. Okay, what else did you hear? What else did you see, Barry or Melissa, in my question?
Well, I want to hear you talk a little bit more then about what might be lighting you up, right? Because I do part of the cycle that you're sort of talking about, right? Whatever cadence it is, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is for different people. Yeah. Right. I think we all hit this like local maximum, or maybe like you hit the diminishing return point, and then how to find the next thing.
Can I phrase it differently? Because I feel like I don't know, this might resonate with you. And you both know, like I kick myself for not getting motivated about things, but I also like start thinking about the concept of like a sabbatical from work to go do life, right? Or like things that you're passionate about outside of work. I wonder if from Gib, I hear so much about like the majority of his time is doing the outside activities of skiing and backpacking and stuff. I wonder, is work firing you up as much, or is it more like those things are firing you up and you like those pieces?
Yeah. So think about semi-retirement. There's a lot of things you learn. So work provides purpose. Mm-hmm. Work provides structured time. Work provides ego enhancement. Like boys like to talk about how much money they make, right? And work provides creative challenge. So I think what's gone on for me is I've gotten much more and more comfortable with unstructured time. I've gotten very comfortable with thinking about money just as a way of deciding what I do or not do. And I have found lots of creative challenges in the work, air quote, although we are on video, so that's cool. Sometimes with podcasts, I forget that they can't see me. Anyways, So I think I've just gotten comfortable. To your point, what gives me fire? I love building new talks. So I actually, there's a couple things that I want to do: a product sense talk, and I want to do a data talk. And then I have learned a ton about culture, defining, editing, and living a company culture and its importance. I've done a lot of workshops focused on it. It's like a secret. It's a background activity for me. I love it because I work with the CEOs and the exec team, but I've never written about it. So I've written about product strategy, how to define your product strategy on Medium. It's kind of on my list to write the how to define, edit, and live your company culture. And those are the creative challenges. At some point, like a switch turns. I'm just like, I'm going to freaking go do it. And then it's like this burst, and I'll write for 15 hours straight. And I just have to sort of wait for those moments of inspiration. But they don't tend to happen in summer because I have so many, like I'll be doing a lot of backpacking.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right, what about we take a couple of these questions that people
Yeah.
have thrown at us in the last 10 minutes, right? So we'll do a quick fire one on the first one. What's your balance of virtual versus live events? Right now, that's such a to be relatively easy ratio for most people to get.
Well,
Where do you want to get it
to? Melissa, like, what do you think is more helpful right now for audience members, virtual or in person?
Ooh, I think in person. I think having gone to two of them, yeah, I guess two. Like everybody's so jazzed just to be in person. I totally understand the health implications if you can't travel, but if you can and you feel comfortable with it, my God, like the energy at the conference was just astronomical. And like after the Amplify conference, I spent a good like hour and a half in the hallway just talking with 10 to 15 people who like watched my talk and had questions, and they were all like all over the place. So I feel like you get those side conversations that you just don't get on a virtual platform. If you have to do virtual, you have to do virtual. I don't mind coming to speak at a company's like virtual event. For me, like it's easy to show up for an hour. I don't have to travel, and I can also do more of those per year. But I just think if you're on the receiving end, and you want to dive deep, right? This is not like a passive, I had to go to a conference type thing, and you want to dive deep. Like there's just so many hallway conversations from other participants that you could like talk to as well. Like I watched so many people just hit it off with each other like around this conference, and I missed that.
Yeah. What are you seeing, Barry?
So one of the companies we actually are building in the studio is called Ovations, and the co-founder is Ray Leonard Jr. He's Sugar Ray Leonard's son, and the whole focus is actually for virtual events because they suck. They're terrible, right? Like I think most people, apart from obviously this one, which is phenomenal. But the notion though we like it to differentiate it is people don't want long virtual events, but they want high impact moments, right? So with Ovations, you'll be able to like hire Magic Johnson to drop into your Zoom call for 15 minutes and talk about what it creates to build a great team. And you can pay for a fraction of the price to get these phenomenal people for amazing moments, right? And that's what Ovations is targeting, right? I think the long form was of these long events, they serve their need. They're very valuable to scale and give people content. But I think the magic is what Melissa was describing, right? It's these hallway conversations where you focus when you go to an in-person event, right? That's what you're doing for the day. Yeah. You're not jumping from the one thing to another. So, I think they have their place. I'm betting on a business that it does have a place. But I think it's recognizing the mode. Well, are you going to travel though, Gabe? I'm curious what you're going to do.
Yeah,
how you're going to play it out.
I sort of told you my strategy. One trip per month to cool cities. So I'm going to go to Oslo. I'm going to go to Stockholm.
I'll be in Oslo.
I've been to London. Yeah. And I've been to Berlin. But I have to really discipline myself. Like, okay, I'm here. Like, I'll do a day of tourism. I have to maintain my exercise. And I'm always apprehensive, and then I feel pretty good that I've done it. So.
Yeah, I like that strategy.
But the one thing I will say is that I did spend 2 years proving to myself that virtual experiences could be as strong or stronger than in person. And I totally grokked what Melissa said. But I was able to prove, I did use NPS, and we can debate the value of that. But, the NPS for virtual events was equal or sometimes better than in person, mainly because I knew everybody's name. Like, I wish in an in-person
That is
call, the
huge.
person's name would come up.
I honestly like teaching online, but okay, so difference
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
I like teaching online. I teach CPO Accelerator online live with my 20 students that we run all the time. And that has been awesome because I do all the like polls like Gib does. We have like docs that we jump into and brainstorm. We do the breakout groups. I know everybody's name because they're standing there. We've got some background on it and it makes it so lively and everybody participates. Like people just talk my whole class, which is great. That's how I want it. They share stories. It's not just me lecturing. It's a lot harder to do that. Like I do it in person at Harvard too. And it's good sometimes, but sometimes the dynamic changes where like we also went through this whole shift of half hybrid, half in person there too, because people would get sick or they'd have to be quarantined. And it was really hard to manage actually, like the people online versus in class, and the energy felt different. And we had to learn everybody's names. And it's just like, it's a very different vibe. And it was really hard to do group work when you're set up in a lecture style environment, unlike that. And like, just bouncing into a breakout group and letting everybody like, do stuff or like whiteboard or whatever. So there's so many tools I feel like where you could teach super effectively online. And I haven't had as much of a problem with that. I think if you're online all day, every day, which my poor students were during COVID for like 9 hours straight, that's a totally different story. But if you got a one-off class to do online, it could be super effective. But talks, I think Gib does them really nice and, participatory, but a lot of people I run into still just want the like, come and speak to us for 45 minutes. And then I feel like I'm just speaking to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you.
Right. Here's the fourth rank. Yeah. Go ahead.
I saw the question put to Melissa and me. It was like, what do we look for in dun-dun-dun?
Oh yeah. What do you look for in good leaders? What traits? What traits are you looking for?
It says, given Melissa, how do you identify good leaders? What traits do you look out for? So I'm going to give my short list for product leaders, VP level, director level candidates. I look for leadership, and I define that as inspired communication of the future. I look for strategic thinking, which helps frame that. I look for management skills. Management at that level is ability to build organizations, hire. And then I look for highly proactive, results-oriented people. Leaders lead. They can't follow.
Yep.
And then there are a lot of technical skills that a VP of product has to have learned by growing up at some point as a product leader. The technical skills, there are some technology, but there's some creative, some design, some consumer science skills, that kind of stuff. Okay, Melissa, would you give a different response, or how would you modify
everything you said? Yep. A couple things that I would add. I look for people who are really good influencers in the C-suite, because like you have to build relationships and get buy-in from so many different people and so many different personalities. I think that's a skill you can learn as well, but like being able to like read people and respond to it, I think is a very important skill for being an effective product leader. Like recognizing when people are pissed off at you, right? Like, and trying to figure out why, and like being curious about it too, not just getting angry that somebody's mad at you, just be like, why? Like what's going on? So like the curiosity, I think, is a big part there. I'll tell you one thing that will, if I come in to evaluate product leaders a lot, one thing that tells me that you are not a great product leader every single time is when you blame everybody else for why you don't have a roadmap, and for why you don't have a product strategy, and for why you can't do what you want to. If I'm like talking to you about like what's going on and you have nothing put together, and then you just spend the whole time complaining about everybody else in your organization, like you're not leading, like you said. Like you have to be a proactive leader. It's like nobody's going to come there and give you permission. They're like, the people who wait for permission to do their job are not leaders.
Yeah. Barry, what or who do you lean on to clear any lingering fear, uncertainty, and doubt? FUD.
Well, the obvious answer is this here right now, right? Like that's one thing I've definitely noticed with building the studio is that having people to share your concerns and fears with has never mattered more, actually. And
Yeah.
in many ways, it's encouraged me to sort of reach out to lots of people who have either done this before or are doing it, and just feel like normalize that the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is all part of it, actually. If anything, you have to think of it like I think of this control chart, where I have these days from like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's the best thing I've ever done. And then the next day it's the worst idea, or I think it's going to take off and then we're going to fail. And you undulate massively. And maybe what I've learned is actually not to get too high in the highs and too lows in the lows, and then have people around me. And at the end of the day, all you can do is like, shut up and work and try and work through it. Like that's the only thing that makes progress. Like giving out, complaining doesn't. But like the only thing you can do is take action. And yeah, so that's been my answer is embracing the fear and actually making a personal control chart and of it.
Yeah, I have to talk about it. I think out loud. So having somebody who will listen to me and to frame the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, is like step one. To tame it, you need to name it. But that's one of the challenges for me of sort of working alone is I have to talk to somebody.
But it's real. Like every day, I feel like, what if this doesn't work out? Like your identity, you feel fail, it'll hit your like all these questions constantly go through your head. They never go away.
Yeah.
The only thing that you can do though is take action to try and reduce them. Right? If you got a fear, reduce it by doing something to address the fear. And that's been a huge learning for me, going from the 0 to 1 type mentality of building something, right?
Totally. Hey, can we link bomb them just because I'm a feedback freak?
Oh, I know you are. Don't worry. Here we go.
So this is an ongoing experiment. We do it for us, for me, Barry, and Melissa, and we just thought it might have some value beyond us, which is why we let you, be flies on the wall. And it doesn't take away too much. All three of us are pretty candid. There's a couple of secrets we hold out on. Anyways, Barry's dropping a link in. 0 sucks, 10 is awesome. What's one thing you liked about watching this conversation, and one thing that would make it better? So it's basically an NPS, and your feedback is amazingly helpful to us. I now have almost 1,000 NPS scores, so there's always an amazing insight. So thanks in advance for that feedback. And then I'm just trying to be timely, Barry. If I were, I'm not going to close it out, but the main reason that we do this is for folks to see what a personal board of directors conversation, what it looks like, what it sounds like, really to encourage others to do it. And we use the camp model as, a quick, easy way to talk and code with each other. And I have found it helpful, even with the camps, with the S at the end for Melissa. So, and then the go-do is to have conversations like this with peers and mentors. And because it's been a really amazing hack for me in my probably 35-year career. And Barry and Melissa have helped me, to navigate my last 8 years as I did some new stuff like talks and workshops and write and wow. So that's how I'm going to close, and I'll let Barry and Melissa close however you'd like.
Well, I all I can say, Give, is plus 1,000 to that. I can't say how much I value these conversations with both of you, and hopefully they're valuable to other people and inspire them in that way. I'll let Melissa close out then.
If it leaves it up to me. I like this as a chance to reflect, and I think it's a good practice. Like, I don't know, you guys all hear from me sometimes how I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I sometimes like just sitting down and filling out our little sheet before we got into here, I was like, oh, I feel better about like what I do now. Like it makes me not feel so bad. So I enjoy this because it is a chance to reflect and be like, okay, like, am I on track for what I want to do? Am I happy about it? And I think it's a good practice for, those of you out there who are listening, and, you can even do it yourself. But thanks for joining us. Maybe we gave you some kind of framework to think about as well. So stay in touch and we'll see you next time.
Take it easy, everyone.